Hello and welcome to The Journey Home. I'm Marcus Grodi, your host. We present two interviews from Sweden this evening. We first meet Kjell Trosander, a teacher or so-called lecturer at the University of Örebro. He dabbled in various religions, including Pentecostalism, before his conversion to the Catholic Church. He's now studying for the Catholic diaconate. Kent, welcome to The Journey Home. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
You did mention to me beforehand you've seen the Journey Home program.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh, yes, many times.
Do you see it over the internet or the satellite?
Both.
Both.
I have a satellite, so I can see it.
All right. Well, wonderful. It's great to have you then on the program. And so if you've seen the program, you know what you're in for. So welcome to the program. Let me get out of the way and invite you to begin by giving us a little summary of your spiritual journey. Where'd you come from?
Yes. I'm born here in Sweden, and as I'm born, I belong to the Lutheran Church. But my parents weren't very active Christian, but they believed and so on. My grandparents belonged to the Salvation Army, so I were in the meetings, scouting in the Salvation Army, also as a teenager. And I was confirmed in the Lutheran Church, and it was important for me. It meant something for me.
It was involved a spiritual reality for you. Yes. But when I studied at the University of Örebro, I came in contact with a Christian student group from United States, the Navigators. Yes.
And we studied the Gospel of John and had meetings every week. And they wanted us to join a parish, but they didn't advise us to which one we should go. But so I went around a little. I also went to a Catholic church because I had a girlfriend then who also were interested in the Catholic Church. But I stopped at the Swedish Mission Church. It's a Lutheran church, but free from the state. But it was when in Örebro, and when I moved back, when I had finished my studies, I moved back to my hometown. I joined the Pentecostal church because I had some friends there, and so it was natural for me to join them.
So you weren't finding in your state Lutheran church the same kinds of enthusiasm that you experienced in Navigators? Is that why you weren't disappointed?
Yes, because they studied a lot, and I was interested to know more about my faith and so on. And the Navigators had given me some tools to go on with that. But I think I was quite disappointed in the Pentecostal church about the studying. It was most about feelings. You should feel more, and I wanted more that to ground my faith in the Bible and so on. So we were some who met and studied the Bible more intensively.
Now, I'm wondering if a fair amount of our audience might be surprised to hear about the presence of Pentecostalism here in Sweden. I know I was when I first heard about your journey. Has it been here for a long time? Is it well established here in Sweden?
Yes, it has been here since 1906.
Okay.
So it's over 100 years. And it's most it was a very a very important leader, Levi Petrus, and he had a very great impact on here in Sweden. And it was written about the movement in the early years.
Was he an immigrant to this?
No, he was born in Sweden, but he had contacts in America.
Okay.
So,
because that was right around the time when Pentecostalism actually took off and grew in the United States, starting at Azusa Street there in California, and of course the spread of that in the United States.
I think it was a Norwegian pastor who had been in United States, Barrett, and he introduced it for Levi Petrus in Sweden.
So you brought some of the navigators' ideas to the Pentecostal church. Is that what was happening?
Yes, in the parish that I belong to. So yes, that's true.
Because the Navigators that organization does a very strong commitment to knowing the Bible and living the Bible, memorizing the Bible, which is it's a fine challenge to us.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Was that well received in your Pentecostal church?
Both. There were some in my own age. We started it, and so.
All right.
Yes.
So how long were you in the Pentecostal church?
Since 74 to 2000.
So about 25 years. You were very involved with the Pentecostal church.
Yes, I were. We had plans to go abroad, my wife and I, and we studied linguistics in Wycliffe in England. But my wife had diabetes, and so we were not allowed to go.
So really you were sensing the call to mission work for the Pentecostal church.
Yes.
Right, right. With Wycliffe. Were you teaching at the time? I know you teach now. You teach accounting right now, right?
Yes, I have been teaching since 79.
All right.
Both in the high school and now in the university.
All right. Well, I guess I'm assuming if the Catholic issue hadn't arisen, you'd still be a Pentecostal today. Is that correct? Probably.
Yes. My wife passed away in 96, and then if I shall say, we meant very much for each other, and we were really one, and it was very hard for me and my son. We had an adopted son from Sri Lanka, and he was only 17 years old then. But my brother-in-law, he took me on some trips. So in 97 we were in California, and 98 we went to Hawaii. And in Hawaii, I got in contact with the Blessed Father Damien of Molokai. And
you visited the island?
Yes, and it was very touching to hear about a man who gave his life for the leprosy there, and it moved me very much.
Before that, had you considered the Catholic Church at all? Or?
Yes, during my studies in Örebro, during the early 70s. But when I came home, I had a discussion and prayer group of men from different churches. And one of the members there, he was belonged to the High Church and near the Catholic Church, and he recommended me to buy the the Catechism of the Catholic Church. So I bought it and I started to read it. And well, during the summer or the spring of 2000, I went to Paris for my work, and I went to different churches and so was moved that the church was filled with people who prayed, and they went in and out, and it was always people in the church, and who were there not only to look at it, but to pray, and it was important for them. And it was also moving for me to see that. And when I came home, I went to my first retreat, not in the state church, or it was a Pentecostal church. Mm-hmm. But we had some, the breviary, and when I was praying there on my knees, and I could almost hear a voice saying, "You are going to be a Catholic." And I was astonished, and I hadn't thought about it earlier. But I took contact with the parish at home, so we started to study it every week. And I wrote letters to the convents, different convents, and asked them some question. I had the Virgin Mary and other things. And
quite a bit different than your Pentecostal background on those issues. Yes.
Mm. And it was a Carmelite convent here in Sweden. So it was Father Stenesen who asked me to come down, and so we could discuss it, not only through letters. So I went there, and it was very nice to meet him and to discuss the things that was important for me. And it was. I was very. So my feelings were high then. It was like a romance, the first love that I felt, and I was so interested in everything about the Catholic faith, and I bought books and studied and so on, and I also then got in contact with Opus Dei. Mm-hmm. And it was something like the Navigators for me to their way to see and to study the faith and to live the faith. I saw the comparing.
Certainly a parallel when you think about, Opus Dei's call is for the individual to seek and holiness,
yes,
right where they live. Well, that's Navigators.
Yes.
Very parallel in its goals, right?
Yes. And but I have to leave both. I was belonging to both the state church and the Pentecostal church, and I had to leave them. And I was quite nervous when I had a talk with my pastor in the home parish, but I had prayed before that he would perhaps not understand me, but respect my choice. And we had a very nice talk and a friendly talk for an hour, and he ended with, well, I perhaps don't understand it, but you will know that I respect your choice. So it was exactly what I had prayed about. So,
was this your Pentecostal or your Lutheran?
Yes, no, it was a Pentecostal.
Pentecostal
yes.
pastor, all right. All right.
In the Lutheran, it was only to get the paper and write, and but it was nothing. Well, I was welcomed into the church the 5th January 2001. It was almost the end of the Jubilee year, because I had asked my father that I would become a Catholic during the Jubilee year. And that was also so.
So your journey was from the Lutheran upbringing,
yes,
through the Pentecostal experience. And that in itself, there are theological differences between Pentecostal church and Lutheranism. And then they go to the Catholic Church. I'm wondering, what was, as you look back, what was for you the most difficult of the doctrinal issues for you to work through? Did you have one that was particularly difficult?
Yes, of course, it was about the Virgin Mary. It was most difficult. But I read in the Bible about John's vision about Mary and crowned. Yes, in the Revelations, and I also pray that if this is true, I will try to understand it, and so I started to pray to her. With the rosary and so on.
And I mean, you're asking for her intervention or your intercession for you in your journey,
yes.
And you experienced that in your own acceptance of her
yes.
place in salvation
yes.
history.
And I saw her place in the Bible, and which I hadn't experienced before. I had read the Bible and the paragraphs, but I hadn't looked at it as I looked at it now.
Another thing that's radically different would be the sacraments of the Catholic Church versus there were no sacraments in Pentecostalism at all.
No.
So that in itself was also a radical change for you. Was it mainly just through your readings, or that you came to accept the Catholic sacramental idea?
About the communion in the Pentecostal, it was only like a memory. Yes.
Symbol.
But for me, and I think for the others, it meant something more than only a memory when I took the communion. So it was a natural belief for me to say, yes, it must be so. It must be so. And as it said, you are welcomed into the fullness of a church. And I experienced that. This is that I have believed since I was young. It was a truth for me. So
one of the reasons that the work that I do with the Coming Home Network, which is primarily to help Protestant ministers come home to the church, but we called it the Coming Home Network because for many of us, when we recognize our journey to the Catholic faith, we found ourselves home.
Yes.
And that's a bit what you're saying.
Yes.
You always believed.
Yes.
But really you've found the fullness of your faith when you finally come home to the Catholic faith in that sense. Praying to saints is radically different.
Yes. But I think I have felt the saints praying for me, that I had been surrounded by saints, and Well, it's funny about my wife, and when she died, I hadn't recognized it before, but she died at the 19th of March, 96. And when I was confirmed in the church, I took the name Joseph. And it was a friend in the parish. She told me, well, don't you see that it must be your wife and Saint Joseph which has something to do with that. So maybe.
I'm wondering, it's possible that we've got some Pentecostal viewers, either in the United States or maybe even a Swedish Pentecostal that possibly would be watching the program. I'm wondering if you would maybe have a word for them of encouragement on why they ought to make the same journey home that you've made.
Yes. To go to the roots of the faith and to see the fullness what the church have to offer you, and to the church, she gives you the tools to reach heaven. I think it's much more easier if you take the help the church give you.
Yeah, there's the beauty of the sacraments.
Yes.
Even in the sense in which, and I'm certainly not an expert on Pentecostalism, but I've often thought that one of the key aspects of Pentecostalism is a desire for the Holy Spirit's powerful help in salvation. And that's what we find in the sacraments of the Catholic Church. We're not alone, we're not trying to earn our way, we're not trying to do it on our own.
No.
But we're recognizing the need for that grace that Christ offers us through His church. And that's actually a wonderful suggestion for our viewers, especially in Pentecostalism. If you really want the power, come home to the fullness of this church.
Well, I think many of them stopped with the feelings. It's but it's much more the faith will give you, and the feelings can go ups and downs, and you must be grounded in your faith so that you are not depending on the feelings,
which can mislead you.
Yes.
They can be influenced by all kinds of things in our culture.
It is.
One other thing, Kent, about your journey that strikes me is it seems that in your coming home, there's always been, it seems, a hunger in your life for growing in holiness. In other words, all the way back when you talked about your Lutheran days, a desire for a deeper walk with Christ, Navigators, Pentecostalism, Opus Dei. Have you found coming home to the Catholic Church, in fact, the aids in terms of grace to help in that area of that call to holiness?
Yes. And I'm now going a course for deacons in the church, so I'm halfway to 2 years left. I studied 2 years, and in about 2 years I will be a deacon in the...
You can serve at the altar and really serve our Lord Jesus in a very intimate way as a deacon. Well, that's neat that you have that call.
Yes.
Kent, I think someone else mentioned that you were part of a night?
Yes. The Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, yes, since 4 years. It was introduced in Sweden 2004, and we were a group of, I think, 25 men and women who were knights and dames. And I think it's important to help. It's our mission to help the Christian in Israel and help the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, because many of them are leaving the country because they are gone.
It's a difficult time for them.
Yes.
And we can pray for them and assist them in whatever way we can. All right, well, thank you for that witness to our audience, and also for your witness, Kent. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for sharing with us your journey and being willing to be on Journey Home. It's good to meet you too. Sometimes hard to know when you're looking over the camera who's watching you, and you're watching us from Sweden. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the Journey Home. God bless. Look forward to seeing you. Welcome back to part 2 of our program. Kjell Andersson is CEO of Lebensspektrum, a company which provides innovative specialist equipment for the blind. He is also a longtime listener of the Journey Home. So let's meet Kjell Andersson. Kjell, welcome to the Journey Home. It's great to meet you. Excellent.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
In fact, you've told me that you actually are able to hear EWTN quite a bit over the internet.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, normally then, if you've heard the Journey Home program, you know that we begin the program by asking the guests to kind of start at the beginning. Let us know where you've come from spiritually. So, Kjell, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of a summary of your early spiritual journey?
Yeah. I was born into the Evangelical Church of Sweden, and I was baptized there. But my family never practiced, and that's very common in Sweden, that we are baptized, but we don't practice. So I almost never went to church when I was young, and I was brought up in school where they told us that the Catholic Church was kind of bad and so on, and then I got very interested. Why is it so bad? And what is bad about being a Catholic? But in the beginning of the 70s, I went to Germany to learn German. And most of my classmates went to England to learn English. But they came back and said, don't go to England because you can't eat the food there. But I knew in Germany I would get good food. So I went to Germany, to southern Germany, to a family that was Catholic. But I couldn't go to church with them because they said, oh, you can't come to church because you're a Protestant.
Well, you certainly went from Sweden to the home of Protestantism in Germany. Let me also ask you this, Kjell. Was your sight issues a part of your earlier education? Was it a problem then?
Yeah, I'm born low visioned.
Right.
That means that I saw a little, but not fully. So I went to the blind school here in Stockholm and studied Braille and normal print. So I read both.
All right.
With my eyes and with my fingers.
I'm curious then, if you didn't, though you were Lutheran in name, right, but didn't practice it, I'm just wondering, as you dealt with the issue, the struggle with your sight and other issues growing up, did a lack of faith have an effect on that? I mean, was there a struggle with being grateful or angry or any of those issues as a result, again, of lack of faith to feed your own conscience and understanding of your life?
No, I must say that I never thought about those things.
Okay.
The life just went on, and when I got back from Germany, I also did nothing about my faith, although I had become interested in the Catholic faith.
They never let you go to the Catholic Church when you were there.
but their way of being,
yes,
was very interesting because I felt it was kind of right. Then I met my becoming wife, and we talked about religion, and I told her about my my thoughts about the Catholic Church.
Has she been brought up Lutheran?
She has also been brought up Lutheran in the same way. She was baptized, but nothing more.
All right.
Then we said we lived in a town called Uppsala, north of Stockholm at that time, and we said, let's go down to the Catholic Church here in town and see what it's like, without deciding anything. Just see what is it like. So we went to Mass, and we talked to people there. We talked to the priests, and we were very welcomed. And never they said anything that we had to be members or anything like that. But after a while, we decided to go through the one-year course and study about the church. And that was that we went to a confirmation of our faith. Mm-hmm. So, and some of the priests here in Sweden, the Catholic priests, they ask me sometimes, how do the Swedish church look upon this question? And I say, I don't know. I have no idea because my only religious relationship is with the Catholic Church. And we have 4 children, 24, 20, 13 and 11, and they are all sighted, and we struggle with them to come to church, and it's not always that easy, but so far we have been very lucky to have the children in the church.
So for you and your wife's journey into the faith, would you say it wasn't so much a challenge by the different doctrinal issues?
No.
Because you really hadn't learned your Lutheran faith at all?
No, because I think I was converted from really non-Christianity.
Yeah, okay.
It was like being baptized from nothing.
From nothing. What was it like for you, though, when you experienced the Catholic sacraments? Because they are different than the Lutheran to a certain extent.
They are different, and they are very powerful. And I really enjoy going to Mass, and I go to Mass, of course, every Sunday, but it happens almost at least once or twice a week also.
And when you look at the Catholic faith, was there any Was there a doctrine, let's say, of the Catholic faith, though you hadn't learned your Lutheran faith, was there any doctrine or practice of the church that was a difficulty for you in your journey into it? What was the most difficult aspect of becoming Catholic for you?
Well, I thought there was no other way. Of course, the difficulty with my friends or with our friends, because not all of them were very happy, and my grandparents asked when we converted a very unknowing question: do you have Christmas? Because in Sweden, Catholics are seen as very, very strange. Although we are the second biggest church in Sweden.
Often we find, especially when our audience hears the Journey Home program, often find that three of the major barriers that stand in the way of people becoming Catholic, the first is ignorance. They just don't know what the church really teaches. And I'd say that's probably where you were, right? Growing up,
yes.
you didn't know your Lutheran faith as well as the Catholic faith.
And I didn't care either.
Okay, there you go. And second of all, the barrier is often that what you think you know about the church isn't true. And you experienced a bit of that too, right? You said that you had been taught negative things about the church, right? And then the third thing is often the Catholics that people know aren't always the best witness to their faith. Did you know any Catholics growing up, other than the Germans that you met later on?
No, not really. Not really.
Okay. But you then discovered that the things you had learned about the church were not true in the process.
They were absolutely not true.
I'm wondering if there's people watching who don't know the faith very well. Any words of encouragement to them, how to move towards learning the faith well?
Yeah, I think we have all opportunities to learn about the church during the way, because to convert, you don't have to know everything. You learn during the journey, and to me or to my family, it's very important that the church is one, and it's international. It has really nothing to do with Swedish politics or American politics or whatever, but the church is the church, and that is one.
Yes. Often when people talk about their journey, often what they focus on is the apologetic arguments, back and forth, but sometimes we don't talk as much about the important aspect of the spiritual life of the church. And as you've come into the Catholic faith, probably from a life without spiritual life to one with it, talk a bit about that journey itself.
Yeah, in the church I have learned how to pray and how to get in contact with God and to have contact with God and make that as a way of daily living. And now I'm much richer in my living than I was before. And I guess I can also in my work put forward Catholic tradition and Catholic values, and that's also a part of the evangelization program, so to say.
Yes.
So it has meant both to me and my wife and our kids very personal satisfaction, but also being witnesses to the outer world, so to say, to the world of other Christians and non-Christians.
Talk a bit about your work. You're very much involved with the work of Braille.
Yeah, I have a firm of my own, and I sell programs which adapts computers for blind people. That means that we work with Braille, that we read with our hands, and speech, so the computer speaks what's on the screen.
I can't imagine that, to be honest with you, Kjell. I'm so limited by my vision, that I can see the screen, and that's how I would do that. I'm trying to imagine how I would do that only with my fingers or hearing. I mean, that in a sense is a certain gift that you would have to be able to experience that reality through your hearing and through your hands. To what are you able to communicate the faith through the Braille, and are you involved with that at all?
Yeah, I can use Windows like you can, and I can mail, I can write papers. I'm able to do everything that is possible with the computer, and I can watch Catholic resources in the internet. I have searched for Catholic resources, and that's why I found you, the EWTN. And the EWTN has meant very much to us, because we can get our faith much deeper and it's made available 24 hours a day, so we can take it anytime we want.
There are a lot of people that I meet who say they can't watch EWTN because of where they live. They can't receive it on cable or satellite, but you get it over the internet.
Yeah, over the internet, yes.
And that's an encouragement to our audience too. If they don't need to, they can tell their friends and family that there's an internet there, and you can see and hear the program over the internet. But you also have, in your work of Braille, if you could describe also maybe in more depth how you use Braille to actually see EWTN.
Yeah, of course, to take it in practice, you have a multimedia page where all the feeds are, both TV and radio, and I just go clicking on the 300 kilobits stream of your video, and there it is. And of course I can't see television, but I hear, and my kids can see what's on the screen, so we can watch television together.
Now, your friends, how did they feel about your journey back to the Catholic faith?
Yeah, some have been quite interested, and others have been quite hostile, and said that, "Oh, come on." But most people, or most of our friends, are a bit interested, but they would never ever go with us to church. That's too dangerous.
I think, Kjell, that you're another witness to us in many ways, because I'm like so many in the audience that we have many gifts from God that we take for granted. One of them is our sight, and I know you've experienced it because you were seeing, and then now you've lost that ability, though God has made up for it in other ways. How about a word to us about the need to appreciate all the gifts that God has given each one of us, from your own perspective?
Yeah, we have all gifts, and tasks that we have to do for God, and He will show us the way. And maybe my blindness was a cause of God, how should I put that, preventing me from doing bad things. I don't know. He will tell me afterwards, I think, why He did this to me. But I'm very grateful that He showed me the way into the church, and that He showed me the right way, and I will do my very, very best to put His message forward to other people.
There's an attitude in the New Testament about the importance of thanksgiving as the attitude behind all things. You know, and I think it's in Philippians 4 where it tells us to present our prayers and petitions to God with thanksgiving, and then the peace will come. And the importance of, regardless of the situation we find ourselves in our life, is to recognize God's gift and His grace in that and have an attitude of thanksgiving, which is what you've just expressed to us, Kjell, and the challenge of that. And of course, our prayers are for you and your family in your journey. I'm wondering, again, as a word of encouragement to, let's say that there are adults watching who have children with sight issues, maybe a word of encouragement to them.
Yeah, at first, all people come from God, and only God has the plan for everyone. And being blind or low vision isn't that difficult that you as sighted people believe. Because we look upon ourselves as quite normal people. But of course, the way of living will be a little bit different from normal-sighted people. But just a little bit. But the main thing is that we pray to God, we follow His rules, and He will tell us in the end why He put me and very many others through these difficulties as we see it. But maybe it wasn't difficulties. Maybe it was possibilities.
It's wonderful, Kjell, you make that witness to us, because isn't it true that sometimes the biggest handicaps are our attitudes, and our maybe anger or frustration or dissatisfaction. A lot of that comes out of self-centeredness. Yeah. But it's a work of grace that opens our heart to see our lives and ourselves in a different perspective.
But we have the same problems with being self-centered as you have. But it might turn out in another way, but it's the same struggle as in a human being, of course.
Maybe as a way of summarizing, let's say that we have somebody watching right now that happens to have turned on EWTN, and they were like you were, Lutheran in name, but not really knowing their faith. What would you like to say to them to encourage them to consider the Catholic faith in the same way that you did?
I would say that go to church, go to Mass, sit down, watch, be with the people, and ask a lot. Why are you doing this, and why are you doing that, and how does that come? And everybody will be very pleased to explain to you why we are making so strange things.
In your own journey, was there a resource or a book that was a very strong encouragement to your faith that you found very helpful
No, it was meeting people.
So it was the witness of Catholics themselves. Well, that's a great message to the audience, to remember that their life and their words can sometimes be the biggest witness to help somebody on the journey.
And it can take time. And don't worry, because like one of our priests said to me, you need the church more than the church needs you. And that's very true, because the church will go on. It doesn't matter which decision I take as a person, but the church will go on, the faith will go on.
Kjell, that's a wonderful, humble attitude, which we all need to take, recognize it's not about us, right? It's about Jesus Christ and His church and the great grace that we've received to be a part of it. Kjell, thank you so much for joining us on the journey home and for your fine witness, and our prayers are with you and your wife and your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
And thank you for joining us on this episode from Stockholm on the journey home. God bless. See you again next week.